All right, let's introduce a concept of a surety. A surety is very similar to a guarantor, but there are differences. So we've got sureties and we've got guarantors. Surety and guarantor are both parties who promise to pay a debt or perform an obligation on behalf of a debtor. However, their liability will differ. So think of them as similar, but here we see the differences. Now, a surety is directly liable for the debt or obligation along with the primary debtor. In case the debtor fails to fulfill their obligations, the surety becomes immediately responsible for the payment or performance. Seeing an example here, a surety, so this could be just a person, right? A person co-signs a loan for a friend. If the friend defaults on the loan, the surety is directly liable, and the lender can pursue the surety for the outstanding amount without first exhausting other options with the primary debtor. So right away, if the friend defaults on the loan, they don't pass go, they don't collect $200. The creditor comes right after the surety. So as we see, sureties are probably going to have a lot more liability here. Now, as such, why is the friend doing this? Yeah, they could be a good friend, but how does this come into play also? Let's say that JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, these banks may choose to act as sureties or guarantors for other institutions for payment, right? There's all these credit departments. There are these big financial institutions that will co-sign something for someone else, for another entity, for a person, in exchange for payment. Now, if you're a higher risk individual or entity, they'll charge more. And if you're a lower risk, they'll charge less. So different from a guarantor situation, the creditor does not first have to attempt to collect the debt from the primary debtor. Now, for a guarantor, on the other hand, they're only liable if the debtor does not perform for the creditor. The guarantor's obligation is secondary and only comes into play after the creditor has exhausted all efforts to collect from the primary debtor. And we're going to talk about what the creditor actually needs to do. We'll talk about best practices for actually collecting from a debtor. We're going to talk about how you can't knock on someone's door at midnight and harass them for money. Right? That's pretty rude and illegal. An example here, a guarantor provides a guarantee for a friend's rental lease. If the friend fails to pay the rent, the landlord must first attempt to collect from the friend before pursuing the guarantor for payment, meaning putting letters on the door, calling them, just doing various activities. We'll talk about that as well. In summary, a surety has a direct and immediate liability alongside the debtor and is primarily liable to the creditor, while a guarantor's liability is secondary and comes into effect only when the debtor fails to fulfill their obligations. All right, making sure we understand the differences there, super important as we get forward. See an example here, more examples. A surety in a strict sense is directly liable for a contract and differs from a guarantor, who is only liable to the creditor if the debtor fails to fulfill their obligation to the creditor. Now, in this surety example, David lends Emma $10,000 with a due date of July 1st. Fiona acts as a surety on the promissory note that represents the debt. On July 1st, David, the creditor obligee, may demand payment directly from Fiona. Fiona is liable even if David has not demanded payment from Emma or declared Emma in default. Whereas for the guarantor, David lends Emma $10,000 with a due date of July 1st. Fiona guarantees Emma's performance on the promissory note representing the debt. On July 1st, David, the creditor obligee, may demand payment from Fiona only if Emma defaults on the obligation, usually meaning failure to pay. So making sure we understand the differences. And again, why would someone do this? Maybe they'll do it because they're your friend. Maybe they'll do it because it's a parent-subsidiary relationship within corporations. Maybe they'll do it for payment. I'll pay someone to help back up my debt, so I'll be able to actually take out debt. Many different reasons kind of help paint the picture. Now, a guarantor of collectability is only liable if the creditor cannot collect from the debtor after pursuing all legal remedies, including demand, lawsuit, judgment, and completion of all supplementary legal proceedings. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.